This episode of the HVAC School Podcast is brought to you by our partners. Carrier and Carrier.com. I've been a Carrier dealer for many years. Carrier has their new Greenspeed Extreme super high efficiency heat pumps out on the market now. Find out more by going to Carrier.com. Don't miss the absolutely essential event in ACHR, the AHR Expo 2025, coming to Orlando, February 10th through 12th. Explore the latest product advancements, best practices, and industry trends, and I'll be there, of course. Register now for free at ahrexpo.com. FastStat at fast-stat.com. FastStat makes a wide range of extenders for multiple different types of thermostats, allowing you to extend the wiring between a heat pump, indoor unit, outdoor unit, upgrading from an air conditioner, that kind of thing. You know, sometimes you don't always have all the conductors you need, and FastStat makes it really easy to upgrade and get that thermostat installed without any hassles. No more fishing for cables inside of walls. Nobody likes pulling new wire through crawl spaces and attics, or even worse, chases here in Florida. Customers don't like it when we drill access holes in their walls. FastStat wire extenders help customers and contractors see real results on time and on budget. Labor's the most expensive thing, if you haven't noticed. Find out more by going to fast-stat.com. I'm a fan of UEI combustion analyzers, and a big reason I'm a fan is because of their overall low cost of operation, their lifetime cost of operation. Now you can keep your UEI combustion analyzers at their best with the UEI Service Plus guarantee. Book your annual recertification online at ueitest.com/service, and here's what you get. Free shipping both ways, a warranty extension for 1 more year up to 10 years max, and same-day return shipping the day they receive your analyzer. Guaranteed. So don't miss out. Get the full scoop at hvacrschool.com/UEI service. UEI Service Plus. More than a promise, it's your performance guaranteed. Refrigeration Technologies, and specifically Viper Wipes, the all-purpose wipe that is really amazing what it can cut through. Everything from mastic to oil, grease, tar, grime, and it's nice on the hands. Makes them nice and soft when you're done. So that way you can go home and head out a-dancing when you get back to the house. Find out more at refrigetech.com/viper-wipes. refrigetech.com/viper-wipes.
And now your host, the guy who starts all his limericks with, "There once was a man from Nantucket," and still doesn't cuss, Brian Orr.
It's morphin' time. I need to stop it with the cartoon intros. This is the HVAC School Podcast. I'm Brian, and this is the podcast that helps you remember some things you might have forgotten along the way, as well as helps you remember some things you forgot to know in the first place. And today I'm talking with my friend, Trevor Matthews. Trevor is Refrigeration Mentor. That's the name of his company, and that's also what he does. And Trevor and I often talk about similar things related to personal growth. Just some of the mindset pieces that often really are the things that get in the way of growth. And today we're going to specifically talk about gaining confidence technically, gaining confidence in your personal life, how to get from where you are to where you want to go. So here we go. Trevor and I talking about building technician confidence. Thanks for joining us again on the HVAC School Podcast, Trevor.
Thank you for having me, Brian. I really appreciate this, brother.
Yeah, it's always good to see your smiling face again. So first things first, it's been a while. Obviously, you embody Refrigeration Mentor, the training organization. Tell me how you're doing and what you've been up to and how Refrigeration Mentor is doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Actually, we're continuing to grow. Super excited. We're looking to hire another person on the sales side because we continue to evolve. Business development's one thing. But we just launched our Supermarket Academy, really to help technicians out in the field, 2 to 7 years, or technicians who are in HVAC and like to get into supermarkets. So super excited about that because we spent a long time building it. And it's one of those things, you're always progressing each time. You're trying to make things better and better, but it's not perfect, but it's awesome. It's hands down some of the best stuff that I've created. So I'm excited about that. We've been traveling around. I was just in Germany at Chilventa, hanging out with a ton of experts, doing lots of videos and just learning about the new CO2 technologies coming out there and different supermarket technologies. So that's a lot of fun. My wife, Julia, she started in the business back in March. She retired from her previous career after 20 years, and now she's working in the business. So she's a partner in the business. So she's starting to come along and really help grow the business, which is exciting because I know you have a lot of family that work in your business, and it's a lot of fun to see both of us try to strive together to grow Refrigeration Mentor.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's great to be pulling in the same direction with the people who are important to you. Not always easy, but good on you for doing it. So today we're going to talk about gaining confidence in your skills, gaining confidence in professional life, personal life. That is something that a lot of people talk about. I've had a lot of questions recently, even on SpeakPipe, where people have been asking questions around that, like, how do I get from where I am to where I want to be? And so let's start just by talking about maybe some things that you learned early in your journey or throughout your journey, and then we'll get into some specific tips that relate to both professional and personal.
I have so many examples. I remember maybe 10 years ago when I left the field as a technician, and we can get into what being a technician, but I left the field. I was at the point where I was trying to move out and I didn't know how to do. I was scared, but how do I go to that next level of me? And so that was when I applied for that role at Copeland, and I didn't think I was going to get the job, but I did get the job. There was a lot of thinking behind it. But anyway, I get into the role and I don't know anything about business development. I don't know anything about the product line. I knew Copeland compressors, but I didn't know about all the electronics they own and all this stuff. And I remember one of my roles was to go in and speak in front of contractors. That was one of my roles, to get up in front of a group of people and talk. I'm not an introvert, but I'm not someone who is just outgoing, as everyone sees. Like, oh, they see Trevor on LinkedIn. Yeah. But I wasn't like someone who would just jump up in front of people at first. I can do it now. Like, we're here chatting and I do it all the time. But 10 years ago, that wasn't me. I didn't have a lot of confidence getting up in front of it. And I remember sitting down at a session. So we were sitting down, there was a presentation going on. Andre Patnaud, he was up doing a presentation. I was like, he's crushing it. And it was a internal talk, but he's crushing. I think he was talking about compressors or something, but he was very professional. He was speaking out. And I'm like, oh man. And then I had to go up and do a little thing. And I'm just nervous and shaking and sweating. I didn't get up in front of people before, but I was seeing him up there and I'm like, I want to be able to do that. And I get up the first time, bomb, terrible, wasn't good. Get up a second time, not very good. But then I'm like, I talked to Andre and I talked to other people, like, how did you get this? Well, he's like, Trevor, I've been doing this for 30 years. I've been reading all the documents. I've been getting trained by other people. There's a list to go on. So what did I do? Like, I wasn't that good. But how did I build my confidence? I went and I started learning. So I had to teach something. I remember it was on a semi-hermetic compressor with digital compressors. And I didn't know anything about digital compressors. Even when I was in the field, I was 10 years, I seen them, but I avoided them because I didn't know the technology. But I spent days, weeks, and months studying this stuff. So I went up, I did okay. I studied some more, went up in front of another group, did better, went up. And then all of a sudden, after 10, 15, 20 times, I didn't have butterflies in my belly anymore. I got up and I was crushing it. Anyone can do the same thing. But to build that confidence, you got to start somewhere. And that's the big thing, to start.
Yeah, one of the things that I can relate to there, and again, this isn't necessarily right at the beginning of my career, but I went into business pretty young. So I was still in my early 20s when we started Kalos. So I had to go sit for my contractor's exam. And I've always thought I was a pretty good test taker, but I was homeschooled. So I didn't do a lot of traditional. In fact, this is the first time I'd ever done it, really sitting in this big arena, essentially, where they do these testing and you have all these contractors and all this. And I remember talking to my dad about it before I went and just expressing how nervous I was. And Dad was always a really good test taker. And he's a contractor, electrical contractor, and a general contractor. And he said every time he would walk into those rooms, he would feel like other people were probably smarter than him, were probably going to do better than him, probably had studied harder than him. But he used that energy to just study or just read. It was an open book exam. And I still read all the books. And people are like, why'd you read the books? You don't need to read the books. Just know how to tab them and all that. I'm like, because I want to know what's in the books. I want to know what's actually in there. And that's something that is hard to teach. You have to want it and you have to do it. And if you do it and you want it and you do it and you repeat over and over, you're going to get good at what you do. And it is that, you talk a lot about this. It's that self-motivation piece, like being willing to say, yeah, it's hard. Yeah, I don't like it. No, I don't feel good about it. No, I don't feel good about myself right now. But I have something that I care about, so I'm going to put the work in.
It was like this morning with 520. It was 32 Fahrenheit, 0 degrees out. My truck wasn't started. I had to get in my truck because I'm not ready to get winter stuff out. I didn't have my jacket or my gloves. And so I'm sitting in the truck. It's cold. Like, oh, I got to drive 15 minutes to get to the gym. Everything saying stay home in bed, but still went and did it. And it's just pushing myself. Did I want to get up and get in the truck and it was freezing cold? No, but just pushing myself because I know I need to do that. I know when I get to the gym, that builds my confidence up for the day. It wasn't perfect. The workout today wasn't perfect, but it's progress and it's getting me to that start of my day that kicks my day off. And I know everyone has different things to kick their day off, but that's for me. If I get to the gym, it builds my confidence for the next thing that I need to do.
And a lot of it comes down to, we've talked about this before, knowing where you're wanting to head, even if it takes a curvy path to get there. You need to be able to look forward and say, I want to get there, and then work very hard not to compare. I heard this recently and I thought it was really good, not to compare your starting point to someone else's end. So if you look at somebody who's been doing it for 20 years, you look at Andre when you first started and you say, well, I want to be like that guy. It's like, that's not a fair comparison. You're just starting out. And if you were to compare yourself to him when he first started out, it would probably be a very similar comparison. And that's true with a lot of people. You want to learn from that to say, hey, that's where I want to get. But ultimately, you've got to have a good amount of grace for yourself and say, no, for me, it's just about taking this step. This step today, you're not going to get done with your workout and all of a sudden be flexing and see these humongous gains the first time you do it. You have to maintain it and you have to work with it and figure out where you want to go and then keep taking those baby steps in that direction. And
I agree with that. So one of the things that really changed me, because I used to compare myself to other technicians, compare myself even to Andre, that example I gave. And a couple of years ago, a coach talked to me. He's like, why does it even matter what anyone else does? But why don't you make it matter that what you did and where you want to go? So compare myself to me. So where was I 1 year ago to where I'm at now? Like even Refrigeration Mentor in the last year, the same as Kalos in one last year. I didn't reflect on the stuff that I did for my goals and my achievement. You can write a lot of goals, but unless you're working towards them and trying to achieve the goals, it's just a goal made up. And so when I started comparing what I'm doing with myself, that pushes me a little harder. Like I need to get up and I got to make another video. I got a bunch of people that rely on the information that I share because it helps them get their day going. That's what really motivates me now is getting the emails coming in and say, hey, you really helped me out. I was in this pickle and I was able to solve a problem from this video that I watched. Or I took this training of yours and my team is doing way better now. They're working as a team than before. Just things like that. And I think a lot of it, after I started comparing to who I am to who I want to be, is way better for me than me trying to compare with someone who's doing it for 30 years already.
Yeah, just not a fair comparison. And in general, when you think about dissatisfaction, if you think about frustration, you think about bad attitudes, so many of those things come from comparing ourselves to other people too much. There's the type of competitiveness that helps drive us forward that can be positive. And that's not always a bad thing, but it's the sort of thing where you can see people. I use an example of me and some of my friends, or even me and my kids, like my sons and I, when we go golfing, I want to beat them, but it's not because I want them to play poorly. I want them to play great. I just want to challenge myself. So I'm using that as a motivation. Do I really want to beat my kids? Of course not. I want them to be far better than me in every possible way. And so we can understand where that's healthy, where that natural competitive motivation is healthy, but not when it gets us to where we're getting locked up or where we're getting negative or where we're trying to hold somebody back in order to make ourselves feel better. And those are good litmus tests to take. It's like, I'm feeling down. Why am I feeling down? Am I feeling down because I didn't do the things that I set out for myself to do? Okay, that's an adjustment I need to take tomorrow. Or am I feeling bad because I'm not measuring up to some ambiguous, ridiculous thing that somebody else is accomplishing or doing in their lives? Well, that's garbage. Just throw that out. That doesn't help at all.
The Instagram video where there's all the Lamborghinis and the mansions behind them, like, come on now. That's in someone else's front of the house. They barely afford the Uber ride to get there to take that video.
Sure. And another thing, a dimension on that, just while we're on the topic, just remember that when you see things that you think you want, you're seeing the highlight reel, you're not seeing their pain. And all of that stuff that you see that you think you want, that's more on the materialistic side or more on that vapid side, look, all of that has a lot of pain that backs it up too. So you don't know what you're wishing for in a lot of cases. Instead, stick with the fundamentals of your own life and where you want to get and what you know is good for you and your people. Whoever you and your crew is, do things that matter for them. Let's go back to that early stage technician who's feeling intimidated, they're feeling scared, they feel like they're going to make the wrong move, especially when you talk about refrigeration. You hear the horror stories of losing product and silent motor rooms and all that stuff. And guys can really get hung up on like, gosh, I don't want to make a mistake. What do you say to that guy? Or what are some maybe stories or examples you'd give?
Yeah, no, that's great. I talk about this in a lot of my training programs. It's one of the things that really needs to be talked, even if you're 5 or 6 years in. The biggest thing that the questions I ask, because I have a lot of people that say, Trevor, I'm not very good with electrical. I'm like, how long have you been doing it for? Oh, I've been in the industry 6 years. Or I'm not good with controls. How long have you been in the industry? I've been 4 or 5 years. And my next question is how many hours a week do you study that controller? Or do you study electrical wire diagrams? They're like, no, I don't. I just do it at work. Doing the stuff at work is what you're supposed to do. And that's just getting by. That's the bare minimum. Everything above that's your learning. That's when you're learning. So the best advice, if you feel like you're not confident at something, you're not good, you're worried about that motor rack room, well, what do? Just think to yourself, what would that other technician, that best technician do? Or what did they do to get to that point? Not to compare, but what did they do? They spent 10 years in the motor room all by themselves. But it was 20 years ago. There was no internet at the time. There was pagers. Think back a while ago. I guess the new technicians won't really understand that, but they didn't have the opportunity we had today. So if you feel uncomfortable and don't understand something, do some research. Just like Brian said before, he read the books where people say, oh, well, just put place tags in the book. No, just read the book. It is dry. It is boring and it sucks sometimes. But when you put that work in, that's where you build a confidence. And this is where we had this conversation before. Why does it have to take 4 years to become a journeyman? Why can't we build them in 1 year? You can. You could build one in less than a year. People are like, oh, you can't learn refrigeration in a year. Yes, you can. That mindset that you have that you can't learn refrigeration in 1 year is the problem. If they spend 6,000 hours studying refrigeration in that year, when everybody else is just working for 2,000 hours or whatever, 2,500 hours, that's 3,000 more hours of investment in there. It's not a fair comparison to say, well, it takes that. You can't. People can't. What are your thoughts on that, Brian?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, we see it here all the time. Hey, HVAC School Podcast listeners. I wanted to read it like a normal ad. Hope you guys don't get tired of my ads, but this is a good one. This is a really good one. Don't skip this one. It's a good product. You're going to like it. It is the Wet Rag Heat Shield by Viper Refrigeration Technologies. Refrigeration Technologies is the company. Viper is the brand. And this flame-resistant pad is a game changer when it comes to preventing issues, damage, fires, stuff like that, as well as protecting sensitive components from heat transfer damage during your HVAC projects. The Wet Rag Heat Shield is made from high-temperature, fire-resistant, absorbent carbon. The absorbent part is key. You can use it wet or dry. With a woven core of fiberglass, making it versatile for both wet and dry use, like I just said. It's perfect for shielding wood, insulation, studs, walls, flooring, valves, painted surfaces, metal pipes, and other components or surfaces from heat damage. Plus, it's reusable, machine washable, and safe to dry. With resistance to up to 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit, you can trust the Wet Rag Heat Shield to protect your work environment and materials. We can't recommend this product enough. In fact, we did a video on it. If you go to their page, you'll find the video Bert did. It's a good one. It's been a lifesaver for us, and we know you'll love it too. Find the Wet Rag Heat Shield at a quality distributor near you or go to TrueTechTools.com and make sure to use the offer code GETSCHOOLED at checkout for an awesome discount. Trust us, this is an essential addition to your HVAC toolkit. Find out more, go to refrigetech.com/wetrag-heatshield. refrigetech.com/wetrag-heatshield. I know you know Matthew Taylor, who's leads our refrigeration group, and he has a infectious enthusiasm for the technical. Matthew's been around a long time. He doesn't necessarily come across as bubbly by any stretch of the imagination, but he cares about the stuff he's talking about. He's learned how to teach it really well. So we have a bunch of young techs. A lot of them have been doing it. My son's an example. My son is 23, young guy, and he is an active, functional journeyman refrigeration technician. And that comes from two things. It comes from working with somebody who cares to invest, but also you really have to have an attitude that you can learn it. If you have the attitude that you can't, or that like, oh, I've only been doing it 5 years, how could I possibly know all this stuff? Then you're probably not going to. Whereas if you have the attitude of, no, this is interesting, I'm going to be interested in it, and I'm going to focus on it until I actually understand what's going on, then you will. And that's the one barrier that I see a lot. And I don't know if it's a new thing. I think it's probably always been, but I see it a lot, is people, they don't think that they need to be interested in their work. They don't prioritize that. Like, hey, they'll have this attitude of, well, hey, why should I do extra? They're not paying me any extra to learn it. It's like, I understand. Let's say that you even work for somebody who you don't like and it's a drag and it's a bummer to work for them, whatever. Well, does it help you or hurt you make more money if you are learning faster, if you're becoming really good? Who does that help the most? You may say it helps your employer, but only for right now. You're going to take that elsewhere. You may start your own business. You may become a consultant. You may become an educator. You may go work for a manufacturer. You may go work for another company and be a senior technician or an advisor, whatever. Those are all steps that only get made if you're investing in yourself every step of the way. This is something you talk about all the time, but that starts with an attitude. And the attitude of this is boring, this is lame, this sucks, isn't going to get you anywhere. An attitude of, how the world works is actually cool. This is pretty interesting. And why is it doing that? Okay, let's research until I figure out, or call somebody or shoot them a message on Facebook or whatever, and get some dialogue going on how these things work. And nowadays with the communities and the resources that are available, there really is no excuse not to do that. There really isn't.
Yeah. I have countless people who came through my supermarket program or CO2 program who messaged me afterward, I got a raise, or I got a new job at a better company that I was trying to get at, but I just needed that kick in the butt or whatever it is. Everybody wants to do good out there, but I've seen it more and more. It's about the people that they're around at work that's really holding other people back. And that's unfortunate, because it's good when they come to the program, they see that there's other people out there who care, who want to grow, who want to learn, who want to get better. And then it inspires them. Well, maybe I should try a little bit harder, because I've had people in my program too. Right off the bat, I asked them, because a lot of times the contractor will pay for all the technicians. We have 25, 30 technicians, and I meet with them one-on-one or in a group session, and I ask the question, well, do you know if my company's going to be paying for these 2 hours after work? I'm like, you're not in the right program. If you're thinking already you should be getting paid for these 2 hours, this knowledge that you're going to gain in this 2 hours is going to far surpass the $100 or $200 your company is going to pay you for the time, like far surpass that. And so when people start to realize that, because that's in the one mindset, they're used to, they're hanging around it. And I don't blame them, because I was like that at one time, Brian. I was around people that said, don't go to training unless you're getting paid. And it's hard when you're around that all the time. Oh, you're in a union, so don't go to training unless you get paid. That's the wrong mentality. The mentality should, like you said earlier, I want to learn because I want to get better and I want to grow and I want to be home quicker. This is another person emailed me and said, Trevor, after this program, I am troubleshooting faster. My service calls are dropping. I'm going home earlier. I'm not staying until 6 o'clock to try to fix the problem anymore. I can get out of there at 3:30. That makes a difference. Does that have anything to do with your company paying you for a couple hours to come to a training? And yes, today, the way I believe, what I believe now versus me 15 years ago is different. I'm going to be honest with you. 15, 20 years ago, I thought differently. But now I invest in myself and things just keep happening. Better things. I start to grow, more opportunity comes. Days are tough for both you, Brian, and myself. It's not always easy, but when you continue to invest in yourself, there's way more brighter days, and it just keeps coming. I'm excited. I'm here talking with you. This is awesome. I love chatting with you. But that's what I do, is try to really invest in myself. And it has nothing to do with if I'm getting paid or not. Because most of the stuff I do now, like when I'm going out to a site to do a field startup, I'm not getting paid for that stuff. I'm going out to learn. So when someone comes into my training program, they can be like, oh, Trevor, you've been off the tools for 10 years. You worked at the manufacturer, but you don't know what it's like out here. Well, I do, because I go out with the technicians and the manufacturers in these field startups. So I can be, when I'm in a training, I can teach them. I know the struggles you're going through in that startup or that commissioning or that problem. And then if you don't know it, and I explain to you on what to do and how to do it, and you go and run with it, awesome. But if you don't come and make excuses that my boss needs to pay me for the training.
And again, it's short-term versus long-term thinking. You see that all the time. If you are only focused on short-term wins or short-term payoff, then that's all you're going to have your whole life. And that's not necessarily even a value judgment. It's just a fact. I don't necessarily think people are worse because they make different choices, but it's not going to lead to a lot of joy or a lot of opportunities in your life. And when you think about what I see, I want to anchor this to something that I've been talking with my leaders a lot about recently. People who are successful generally have a relationship to their work where they choose, and it is a mental choice that they make. They choose that when they're at work, they're going to care about their work. That doesn't mean that when you're at work, that's the only thing that matters to you in life. Your wife calls you, one of your kids calls you, they have a need. Obviously, those people matter more. Never disputing that. But it does mean that when you're there, your mind isn't distracted by all this other stuff. You're just saying, hey, this is what I'm here to do for this next 8 hours or however long I'm doing this. And so I'm going to take it really seriously. It's going to be a priority to me during this time. And people who are successful do that. They don't make excuses for not working or not learning or not whatever. But then in addition to that, they also tend to be very self-aware. So a lot of the things that you've said, that it speaks to self-awareness. Because I used to be this way and now I'm this way. What allows you to change from this to this? You have to know that there's a gap. And one of the best ways to help fill a gap is to connect with people who help you get from here to there. Sometimes that's a training class. Sometimes that's a business coach or a mindset coach or just a friend who you know is positive or who's going to tell you something that you need to hear in a moment. Being able to break yourself out of that. So you're like, look, I'm getting into a negative mindset here that's not going to make progress for me. I think a lot of people see you as being like this eternally positive person who just never has a negative thought or a negative thing to say. But knowing myself enough and others who I think have those same characteristics, my guess is that's something that you have to work at.
I'm working at it every day, real hard. 12, 14, 16 hours a day. On Wednesday, I started at 5 at the gym and I went till 11 o'clock that night. That's a long day of training and business development. It's not always easy, but I do it. You have to do it. And I think trying to have a positive, you can have a positive or negative attitude. Either way, it doesn't really matter. But I know when I have a positive attitude and I try to be positive around other people, they feel a bit of joy from that. Because maybe they're always around negative people and they're not used to someone smiling and asking them how their day was, or just say thank you. It doesn't have to be much, but people notice that stuff. So I work on that. And it's not always easy. But the things that I do that help me for the positive, one of them I already said was going to the gym. That's one thing for me. Having conversations with people about refrigeration, honestly, that helps me. When I'm in training, I'm pumped up. I love to talk about refrigeration. So that helps motivate me to get better and to help share that knowledge. So there's a lot of things that I do, and making videos too. I love making videos. I actually wish I had more time to make more videos. It's just there's a lot of other things running a business that come into play, but I try to uplift the room when I go in there. And I don't do it all the time, but I try my best.
For people who will see the guys who study a lot and raise their hand in class and all that, a lot of people will call that a try hard or a teacher's pet or whatever. One thing that I think is really important to get over as an adult, now again, I was homeschooled, so it's a little different experience, but I see this in a lot of people, is like that trying to fit in thing that you did when you were in high school or middle school, where you didn't want to stick out. You didn't want to be seen as the try hard. You didn't want to be seen as the dork or the nerd or the whatever. You want to fit in with the group. I'm here to tell you, if you work to just fit into the group, you're just going to get what the group gets. And what the group gets probably isn't what you want. Maybe it is, but probably isn't what you want. And that's not to say, because I think what a lot of people think that means is that then you get for yourself and then you neglect, you don't care about your friends, you leave your friend group, you do all that. That's not at all what it is. In fact, if you're the type of person who gets opportunities and ends up having resources and you can teach other people, often you find that your friend group just continues to expand. And the way that you're able to influence people positively continues to expand if that's the way you're wired. So talk about that a little bit, that impulse that maybe a lot of people get, like, oh, that's dorky. I don't want to be a pariah because I'm so positive or because I'm working so hard.
Honestly, what you mentioned there was me 20 some years ago. Like, I just want to fit in. And over the years, as I got older, I started to realize that I wanted different things. Like, I wanted to travel the world, where a lot of the people, after I did go travel the world, come back, relatives and friends, they just didn't understand. I talk about this big thing I did, snorkeling in this crazy water with sharks and stuff like that. And it was just like, oh, yeah, cool. They weren't on the same level because that's where I wanted to be. But I was there before because I didn't know, I guess, what I didn't know, but I knew I wanted more. And that's one of the things that I don't know why I was lucky. Like, I was never great in school, but when I was great, I was studying. That's when I was great in school. And is there a correlation? Of course there's a correlation, because I did bad in schools and I did great in schools. And what was the difference? I studied a lot. But I kept going back to school for some reason. I don't know why. I think my sister was the first one to go to university out of hundreds of cousins, because I had a big family. And then I had a cousin, and then me went to university, was the third person, I think, out of a lot of cousins. But I didn't do very good because I didn't apply myself. I want to fit in. And that's what I did at the time. But when I get to my next level, when I got in the HVAC school, At my first year, I did okay. My second year, I crushed it because I was like, I like this. I want to do better. And then as I started to grow, I knew that I did need to push myself a little harder because I've seen the people that are around. I tried to find out who was doing what I wanted to do, honestly. Like, oh, they're really good at controls or they're really good at doing this. I tried to follow it in their footsteps, ask them what did they do. I went and played around with this E2 controller for hours and hours and hours and read the book until I figured it out. I know it's really got off topic there, but I think a lot of it was just to make sure that I was going in the direction that I wanted. But there was a lot of roadblocks, a lot of shiny object syndromes, but that's stuff that I had to overcome to get to where I was today.
All right, let's talk about keeping your gear in top shape with UEI test instruments. You know how crucial your combustion analyzers are. We talk about it all the time for both residential and commercial jobs. Well, UEI has something new and special, the UEI Service Plus Guarantee. When you book your annual recertification of your C160 series analyzer within a year of purchase or your last service, UEI steps up big time. They'll handle the shipping costs both ways. Plus, they'll extend your warranty by a year, which can go all the way up to 10 years. Also, importantly, UEI guarantees to ship your analyzer back the same day they receive it for recertification. If they don't, they'll cover all the costs. And just in case you didn't know, every UEI combustion analyzer comes with a standard 1-year warranty. Each recertification through UEI Service Plus not only ensures your device is in peak condition, but also extends this warranty. Now remember, this applies to recertifications booked at ueitest.com/service. So you're going to want to avoid doing it alternate places to make sure you get all the benefits like free shipping and same-day service. So head over to HVACschool.com/UEI service to get all the details. UEI Service Plus, it's more than a promise. It's a solid guarantee to keep you and your tools ready for any job. A lot of times we can get, I don't want to say overly focused. That's not it, because it's good to be focused. But sometimes we can judge ourselves a little too much, even for some of the shiny objects, because sometimes those things lead to possibilities and opportunities and things you never expected. There's a lot of things that I've done that maybe I didn't utilize that much, but I learned something along the way. One of the things that a lot of people don't know is how deep I got into podcasting at one point. I mean, I was doing it as a hobby and a lot of different other topics that weren't HVAC related because I enjoyed audio and enjoyed all that kind of stuff. That was okay for a season. It was okay to learn some of that and to get into it because it was still driven by passion, not desperation. And that led to other opportunities. And I think sometimes for people, like what you said about the gym or whatever, sometimes for people, if you're really in your shell and you're just like, you're afraid of talking to people or whatever, go do something like take an improv class for 6 months. It may sound dorky, but it'll teach you some techniques of how to keep a conversation going. Maybe interact or meet a new group of people than what you currently are. I think a lot of people end up getting stuck because, like you said, you maybe grew up in a small town, grew up with a big family, grew up with a particular socioeconomic structure that's around you. And you know you want something more. It's okay to try some things to see where that takes you. But you do want to pretty quickly say, all right, now where do I want to head? What is my true north here? And I think you've done that, and a lot of people in our trade have. I want to quickly mention a guy, Chad, who works for us, because I think he's a really good example of a lot of what we're talking about, where Chad started out as a residential HVAC installation apprentice. That's where he started. And this is probably only 6-7 years ago. He went through an apprenticeship class that I did. And for Chad, it was never easy how it was for some other people to pick up very technical things. Very much a hands-on learner, very tactile. A lot of you listening will see yourself in that, where it's hard to just read a book or just hear words and have it make sense. It takes doing it or seeing it done to make that work. And Chad has gone from where early on it was, I don't know if this guy's going to work or not. Very young, it wasn't picking it up super quick, to now being one of the leaders, a senior technician and a leader of our market refrigeration group. And we're talking 6 years. And what did it take for him to get from there to there? Along the way, he got married, he had a couple kids, and he recognized, hey, I like this, I'm good at it, and I'm going to take it seriously, focus on it. He's become an amazing leader. He's a great technician. He's really good at processes and procedures. And he's really one of Matthew Taylor's right-hand men in our company of just like actually being able to execute, train, all that stuff. That didn't happen because of any dramatic moment along the way. It wasn't like one critical thing that occurred, but it was just consistency, showing up, learning what you need to learn, asking tough questions. There are lots of times you would come up to me and ask a question. I'd be like, dude, you don't already know that? Like, I'm worried. But he wasn't afraid to do that. And that's really, really healthy. And that's how you stack those bricks. It's really one hard action, and not always hard, but a lot of times it is. Asking that hard question that you feel a little embarrassed, or being willing, like you said, to wake up and get to work on time or go to the gym or whatever those actions are. That's really what it takes to be successful.
Yeah, I definitely can relate to that because it is small, simple steps. It can be overwhelming. Like all the goals you can think of, you write them all down and you got 7 pages of goals that you want to get. You look at that's overwhelming. It's like picking one of them to work on because you got to take that action towards it. And it is about that. It's about the progress. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's the progress. I was listening to a podcast this morning at the gym. John Ashcroft, I think his name is. And the thing he said, like when he was 19, he didn't know anything. He was a bad kid. He dropped out of school. But he met this guy and he was like, listen, what do you want in life? And he's like, I don't know what I want in life. What goals do you have? Well, I don't have any goals. Why didn't you think about it? I don't know why I didn't think about it. But then he just said, okay, well, let's set some goals up that you want to do. Okay, now how do we take action towards those goals? So then he started taking these small, simple steps towards each one of these goals. And all of a sudden, things started to happen in his life because he's working for them. And taking those small steps, looking at the big picture, he's like, man, this was super overwhelming. But when I was just working piece at piece away, I was making steps and progress. And then he said, this was back in the 80s. And his coach got him to listen to cassette tapes. Half the people probably don't even know what cassette tapes are. You listen to cassette tapes, reading books, writing down your goals and saying the goals you want to. So you're always thinking about them. So you're thinking about the things you want to do. If you want to be good at controls, for an example, here you work in refrigeration, you want to think about controls all the time. That'll be like, maybe I should pick up a book, or maybe I should go on YouTube and look up E2 or microtherm, or I find some videos on, or listen to some podcasts, or it could be an HVAC, same thing. I want to be better at install. Well, start reading the manuals. And so if you're thinking about it all the time, you're going to do more of that. If you're thinking about, I should be out on the beach or I should be partying like I did 20 years ago, you'll be out on the beach and you'll be out partying.
Yep. And a lot of the fundamental things that make a huge difference in people's lives with their career success and their personal success are very, very simple personal habits. Getting to bed on time, not drinking too much, getting some exercise, eating healthy, tending to your core relationships. So that way, when you come home, it's happy discussions, not negativity and all that difficulty, work-life balance, all that type of stuff. You have to tend to those things. And a lot of times people end up blaming their career. You see that a lot. It's like, well, my career took me away from my family. My career did this or that. It's like, ultimately, we all make our choices and we all choose. We're in the most abundant society that's ever existed in the history of the world. Everybody gets all down on everything and, oh, it's so bad nowadays. I don't know what world you're looking at. It's better than it has ever been for almost everybody, at least in the Western developed world. And so we really don't have anything to complain about. So it's a question of, what are we going to do with that? And if you're working too many hours and your boss is an idiot and he's stressing you out and all that stuff, well, then you need to do something about that. It may start with a conversation. It may start with just finding another job. Who knows the situation there? But take some ownership over that and then make those little choices that I'm only going to go out on Friday nights. And even then, I'm going to keep it reasonable. I'm going to get home and get some sleep so that way I'm prepared. Think about those structures in your life and do those things well.
It's up to you to get whatever you want. One of the things that I used to think before I even started this business, and me and my wife sat down and talked about it serious, Refrigeration Mentor, I was thinking about having a business back in 2009. So that's 12 years before I even started Refrigeration Mentor. I'm like, I want to start a refrigeration business. It took me 12 years and multiple different roles to get to where I am, to get enough experience maybe to do it. Maybe that's what I need. That is what I needed for my journey. Over that time, getting to the point where I'm like, okay, I need to make this decision to start the business I made the decision. And that was the thing. I made the decision to do it. And when I made that decision, I didn't turn back on it. And so I went for it because I had the conversation with my boss just before. They offered me a big promotion, a big raise, people underneath me. And I said, no, I can't do it. I need to make a bigger difference in the world for me because I want to help more people in the refrigeration industry. And these are the steps that I need to take. And my journey just changed path. And this can happen. But it was all those small, simple steps over that 12 years when the first time I said I wanted to start a business, all these little steps to get to where I started Refrigeration Mentor in 2021 now. So is it scary? Yes. Is it hard? Yes. But if you put the work in and you try a little bit, you recognize, and like you said earlier, Brian, when you can realize that the things that you want are in your grasp, you need to make the decisions to work towards them.
Yeah, it is that simple in a lot of cases. So some final tips and maybe a book or two, podcast, anything you would give to people to get them and keep them walking down this path.
I think the first step, like you said, is get some sleep, reduce the drinking. Like in our industry, I was a really heavy drinker for a long, long time. So reduce that if you can. Don't have to stop it, but reduce it. Read some books. Okay. There's lots of different ones. It depends what you like. I still like Jim Quick, Limitless. I just finished Good to Great again. I read that one again. That was a good one. I got a bunch of them here too. Like Think and Grow Rich. I'm always good with Think and Grow Rich because it's about the mind. Something that us as technicians in the field don't think. We're always thinking technical, but deep down inside, it's all about what we think about. That's another good one. One more off the list would be the Dale Carnegie one. I still like that one. Or Mastery. Mastery by Robert Greene is another good one that I haven't read in a while, but it related to me because it talks about an apprentice, and the way you go through there. I think another thing is you got to stay active, healthy. Like a lot of people, well, Trevor, I work on roofs all day. I'm walking all day and I'm getting 10,000 steps in. No, that's not exercising. That's just doing what you need to do. That's movement. It's great, but you got to go out for a walk with your family, go out for a run, take the dog for a run, or go and lift some weights, swimming, whatever it is. I think getting healthy, eating less junk food. Because I know when I was in the field one time, I remember one time I went away for 3 months. I came back and see my wife and she's like, "Who are you?" I gained 34 pounds, I think, in 3 months. That was just from eating out and eating junk food. So eat healthy, work out, and read some books and listen to this podcast for sure. Come and listen to the HVAC School Podcast. Another one, though, that I'm still listening to, Brian, is Hidden Brain. That one there is still, there's some good episodes there. Some of them are so-so, but there's a lot of them that I really relate to because they just talk about the mind a lot, things that we don't think about on a day-to-day basis.
That's the one I was going to mention. I go back to Hidden Brain a lot. And again, not every single one applies, but I would say a good 30% of them I get a lot out of, and it changes my perspective on things. And again, I always look for as much as possible fact-based stuff that has been shown and proven to be true, study-based, all that. And there's a lot of that out there nowadays on the health side, on the mind side, on the technical side, even in our trade, lots of really great podcasts and resources, Refrigeration Mentor being one of the many great ones. Yesterday I was talking with Craig from AC Service Tech. The stuff he does is amazing. There's just a lot of really great and reliable resources now that weren't there when we were starting out. You didn't necessarily know where to go or who to listen to. A lot of times, I was just listening to that guy, the senior tech at your office, and he may or may not have the best information. So yeah, awesome stuff. Like you gave some great books there. I don't think I need to really add much to that list, but I would more than anything else just say find stuff that feeds your mind and your soul and bathe yourself in that, immerse yourself in that. Because if you just get stuck in what the media cycle wants to give you, what social media wants to give you, what your coworkers necessarily want to talk about, you may work at a great place where everybody's positive and is saying really encouraging stuff, but that's not most workplaces. So you need to find some outside sources for great encouragement.
Yeah. And I think so too. It's not always easy finding something that relates to you, but I think it's taking the time to do that. Our world everything's going so fast. Put down the phone for a minute or pick it up, one or the other. I don't mind people being on the phone. All these kids today, they're always on their phone. That doesn't, maybe they're doing the research. I think the big thing is get some coaching. That's it. What's so hard, or talk to someone about it. When you're talking to someone, that's about coaching. It could be just your friend. But if you're hiring professionals, it's going to get you there faster, hands down. This is why I'm getting where I am faster, is because I'm hiring people. And then when people come into my training, they're learning faster because I'm giving them 20 years of knowledge in a few weeks or a few months versus them going out and trying to figure it out themselves. And that's what I'm trying to help technicians with, is because I was that guy sitting in the bucket, not knowing what to do, where to start, and worried about if I twist this, is it going to break something? And this is when you go find coaching. And it doesn't matter what's in. If it is in health, so to the gym, working out, is a food person, get some advice on how to make good foods and cook your own foods instead of eating out every day. But that's the thing, I'd say find that. And like right now, I'm starting to learn some new languages. That's what I'm doing. My next step, because my kids can speak French, and I haven't spoke French since I was in high school or in grade school. So I lost a lot of it. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to get a coach to help me with that. It's still invest in myself. And that's what you can do too. Does it cost time and money? It does. But when you invest in yourself, that's investing in your future self. One thing, I'll leave you with this. One thing me and my wife did before we left for Germany when we went to Chaventa. The house was a disaster because we were getting everything ready, and it was like, and just before we went out the door, we had a little time before the airport. She was like, how would our future self feel when we get home after a 10-day trip of work and travel and it looked like this? How would your future self feel? That's what she said. And I'm like, oh. We spent 25 minutes, cleaned up the place. We came back. And when we got back, we were like, this is awesome. So just think about what your future self is going to think of.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great way to think about it and a great place to end. Anybody who wants to find out more about Refrigeration Mentor, the courses, all that, where do they go to learn more?
Yeah, head to refrigerationmentor.com, head to the courses page, reach out to me, Trevor at refrigerationmentor.com. Here to help. I want to help you grow, learn, and get to the next level in your career.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Trevor. It's always a pleasure, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian.
Big thanks to Trevor. Big thanks to the general community of folks who do the trade, who do what we do, whether you're teaching, whether you're a influencer, whether you are a technician out there doing the Lord's work by swapping capacitors or programming controllers or working on variable frequency drives, which I prefer to call freak drives. I've mentioned that before, but I just like any chance to say freak drive, even if it's for absolutely no reason. But yeah, if you're out there doing it, I look up to you. I appreciate you. And I want to say that I think that being in our trade, doing what we do is going to pay off in ways that maybe it didn't for past generations. And that doesn't necessarily make me feel good because there's a lot of people who weren't rewarded along the way. But I think if you stick with it and you're a good person and you continue to learn and work and move forward, I think you're going to do pretty well in these trades over the next 10 to 20 years. So stick with it. Parallel lines have so much in common. It's a shame they'll never meet. Oh, man. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time on the HVAC School Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the HVAC School Podcast. You can find more great HVACR education material and subscribe to our short daily tech tips by going to hvacrschool.com. If you enjoy the podcast, would you mind hopping on iTunes or the podcast app and leave us a review? We would really appreciate it. See you next week on the HVAC School Podcast.